So we will have this webinar recorded, but we can cut out the Q&A sessions in case this gets too sensitive. So good morning, good morning everyone to our FFG Academy webinar on two-stage applications in Horizon Europe, fine-tuning your short proposal and preparing for blind evaluation. Very briefly about us who's speaking today. So we are FFG, Austrian Research Promotion Agency. Many of us work for in national funding as a national funding agency, but today all of us are from the division European and International Programs, which hosts all national contact points in Horizon Europe. And I'm assuming most of you know us by now because you're preparing applications. Briefly, a few words on us. So my name is Astrid Höberts. I'm the national contact point, so thematically for Cluster 1 Health. And I'm also a trainer in the FFG Academy, and that's mainly my role today as a trainer for proposal writing. Maybe Ines and Michaela, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Ines Haberl. I'm also National Contact Point for Cluster 1 Health, and I have my main focus on the mission cancer and also on the Innovative Health Initiative.
Good morning from my side too. I'm Michaela Albu and the National Contact Point for Cluster 4, Digital Industry and Space, with a focus on industry calls.
Thank you very much. So we are 3 speakers today, and this service slide, I'm not going to dive into it too much because I think most of you know us. I just want to point out if you are preparing short proposals and you are in a role as a coordinator, please get in touch with us if you want to arrange proposal checks or a reading of your proposal before the deadline. So what's the agenda today? Part 1 is on my side. It's around 45 minutes, so half of the time today. I'm going to very briefly introduce a short overview of two-stage topics, then introduce the application and evaluation process, what are the requirements at the first stage, and also share with you some statistics and lessons learned from previous calls. After part 1, we will have a Q&A session. Then we continue with a blind evaluation pilot, which applies to some, but not all, of the two-stage calls in Horizon Europe. So if anyone, this is not relevant for you, you're of course welcome to leave this webinar after the part 1. If you stay, we will then dive into the blind evaluation, what this means, the guidance the Commission is giving on this, and very importantly, experience from previous calls. So the presentation is recorded. The PDF link to the slides has been shared with you now in the chat, and we will also share it again afterwards. What we cannot cover in these 90 minutes is, of course, to inform you about the content of all the open topics or consult on your project idea. That's just not the focus today. If you want any of this, please contact your thematic NCP after this webinar. The questions can be asked via the so-called Q&A or F&A window, which is a separate window from the chat. So any links we will post via the normal chat, but if you have a specific question, please use the Q&A or F&A window, where you can also vote on other questions that they rise in the order. So let's dive into it. I would like to start with a short overview. Where do you actually find two-stage calls? The ones we're talking about today are in Pillar 2, so all the clusters, the 6 thematic clusters, and one is in the European, it's in a mission. On this slide, you find the list of two-stage topics. So I'm assuming most of you are applying to some of this. So cluster 1, health, for example, the first line has 5 two-stage topics, deadline first stage September, deadline second stage April, and then in the last column you see if they're blind evaluation or not. For example, for health, all of them are. In cluster 2, culture, creativity, none of them are blind evaluation, and so on. So it's important that you really look at the core conditions if your topic of interest has a blind evaluation or not. Because, for example, in cluster 6, 10 topics are open, and not all of them have blind evaluation, but some do. So you really have to check carefully what applies to you. You can also see that the deadlines for the second stage are also quite variable, ranging from February to April. So first, we would like to know from you what you're interested in. So Janine, if you could start the first poll. I don't see it yet. Yeah, okay. So hopefully you see now on the slide options where you are submitting proposals. There's also the option to tick none of them because you're just generally interested, or several. So we'll wait a bit until most people have answered. Okay, I will end this now and show you the results. So it seems actually like most people are in cluster health. Okay, so these are my clients then. And then the second most is cluster 5, I think. But there's an interest in all of them, just not the mission. Okay, so none of these people is here today. So, okay, thank you very much for this first impression. And then we move on to the second question I've got for you. If you have already submitted a proposal in Horizon Europe, and once this is started, you have the option yes as a coordinator, yes as a partner, or not at all. Okay. Wait a second. All right, I'm sharing the results again. It seems okay. We have a lot of newcomers, actually, 37% who have not participated before, but also a few coordinators, 23%, and 40% as a partner. Okay, thanks for this first impression. So let's dive into the actual two-stage application process. So why does the Commission open these two-stage calls? Basically, these have been introduced in FP7, so Framework 7, so many, many years ago, and they were welcomed by many stakeholders simply as a simplification measure for very heavily oversubscribed topics. So if you see a topic that's two-stage, this means that the Commission is expecting quite a lot of applications for this. It's 10 pages, so it reduces the initial effort for applicants, but not to be underestimated. We'll get back to this. The Commission thinks it's more attractive for newcomers, and because there's a high selection in the evaluation process, the evaluation of the full proposals of the second stage really can focus on the best and have a much higher success rate then. The disadvantage is there's, of course, a longer time to contract because it's two stages with several months in between. And we've simply heard in the past that some stakeholder groups from some clusters simply prefer single stage. How does it work? Basically, there's the normal project preparation. You have a first stage deadline. We've seen on the slides that many calls have a first stage in September. This is then evaluated for a few months. We'll get back to this process later. And then you will hear the results in December or January. And basically you get either a go, which is an invitation to the second stage, or you receive a no-go. And only in the latter case, then you will also receive your feedback, so evaluation summary report. The ones that are invited to second stage do not get this initially, this feedback. They're just invited to the second stage. Then you have between 2 to 4 months to write the full proposals. You have the deadline of the second stage, for example, in April. Others had it earlier. And then it's a normal process of at most 5 months evaluation and 3 months the grant preparation. So in a way, you can probably count on a year from now that your project would start. So what are the requirements for a first stage proposal? So we've seen some of you are newcomers, some have already written proposals. So this is standard that Horizon Europe applications are divided into two parts. The part A are the application forms. This is online, administrative data, budget, some organizational data, and so on. And then there's always a part B, a narrative, a text description, which you upload as a PDF. We're talking about the first stage, so it's important to know that you have basically two different templates here. One includes guidance for the blind evaluation, and one is the standard stage 1 application. So these two PDFs can be downloaded from the Funding and Tenders portal, and you will have the link in the chat. And once you start your project submission as a coordinator, you can download the specific Word templates then in the Funding and Tenders portal. And for simplicity today, we are focusing on research and innovation actions or innovation actions. There are also occasionally coordination and support actions with the two-stage, but we will not. This is minor differences then in the template. We'll not focus too much on this today. So how does it work once you log in and start your submission? As I said, you can download your Word templates once you've started your submission. You can edit the administrative forms. And then here's the part where you upload your PDF document. The important thing is once you start your submission, you have to put in an acronym and an abstract, but don't worry about this. You can change this again at a later stage, and you can also play around in the system a bit and just try using it. You can always delete proposals and start from scratch. So a few words about the part A. Basically, the coordinator launches the application. He or she invites all the project partners and completes most of the information. Then you have to put in some general information like title, abstract, some keywords, and duration. This is all quite equal to the single stage submissions. For the participants in the first stage, it's a bit reduced information here compared to a single stage submission. Also in part A, you have to put in the budget of your proposal. Please be aware that in stage 1, you really put one number here. There's no need to break down the budget per participant, at least not in the Funding and Tenders portal. So one sum. Many choose a sum here that's quite round, 7.7 million, 5.3, but it's still important that you do a rough estimate of your budget and don't just say, okay, the call asks for 8, I'll put in 8. It's still important that you do some rough calculation in the background how much budget you might need, so that in stage 2, if you're invited to stage 2, you don't completely put a different sum in, but stay quite close to the one you put in stage 1. Now to part B, what are the requirements here? Again, this is the basic structure used in Horizon Europe, and only these first bullet points are asked for in stage 1. So the full excellence chapter and part of the impact chapter, not the full one. And there's no chapter 3, and also, as I said, parts of the impact chapter are not asked for here. 10 pages is the limit. There's no cover page as such. You really start writing on the first page. There's also no table of contents, no table of participants, and it's just not required. And once you work with the Word documents, it's just not in there. So really you can start with the text on page 1. A rough distribution, which we know from the past, that the chapter 1 takes a bit more space, 6 to 7 pages, and impact 3 to 4 pages. We are often asked, what about literature references in stage 1? There's really little space. I've seen proposals without any. I've seen proposals that put references as a footnote. and I've seen some that reserve half a page at the end to put their literature in. So up to you, but don't worry about it. There really is not much needed. And especially if it's blind evaluation, we'll get back to this later, you have to be careful here. No extra pages are allowed and no annexes are allowed. In the document, in the Word doc, they give you quite some indications. You can, what margins you're allowed to use, what font size you're allowed to use, and so on. So really use as much space as possible. A brief word that the guidance on the use of AI, so generative AI tools for the preparation, you will find this box in every proposal template since 2 years. That it's in general that is allowed, but you should make reference to it. And if you want to know more about it, just read the box in the proposal forms. So let's start a very quick run through the different chapters. The first chapter is the excellence chapter. For those of you that have written full proposals, it's really quite similar text. You just have to write it in a much more condensed form. It's about the objectives, the state of the art, and the methodology. And don't forget, it has to fit to the work program topic. So the sentence here, the following aspects will be taken into account only to the extent that the work is within the scope of the work program topic. So it really has to match 100%, but that goes for all Horizon Europe applications. The first chapter, subchapter is then on objectives and ambition. Not going to dive too much. It's about the objectives. Why do they fit to the topic? Are they measurable, verifiable, achievable? How you go beyond the state of the art, and to describe the positioning, so TRL levels, for example, for your project. It moves on to quite a big part, the methodology, where you should describe the overall methodology, the concepts, models, and assumptions that underpin your work. This is an important part to show what work, maybe previous work you've done, to really demonstrate the credibility of your approach and how this will deliver to the objectives. And it moves on with a lot more bullet points, and all of these have to be briefly covered. Do not leave any of this out. This might lead to point deductions. So any national or international research activities, the different disciplines. So yeah, so simply to list what you know in your field, who's working, other projects, multidisciplinarity of your consortium, the need for integration of social science and humanities, the gender dimension, and open science. So really, so for those of you who've worked in previous years, you might notice that the AI robustness has disappeared here, and research data management is also not explicitly asked for anymore. Yeah, so there's some simplification. For all the others that are still listed here, write at least a short paragraph on this and never leave anything out. The second chapter is the impact chapter. This is to achieve the expected outcomes and impacts specified in the work program, and to describe the impact pathway. But also as a second part, to give some measurability, some scale, significance, some quantifications of the contributions of your project. Yeah, simply never forget that the Commission, with the calls that they're opening, they've recognized a problem, technical, societal, economic problem, and in the end, you're funded to create impact, and they asked you to describe this in the proposal. And this is the part that's asked for in stage 1, so the pathways towards impact. So it's a narrative again, how the project's results are expected to make a difference. And this is always meant beyond the immediate scope and duration of the project. So a forecast also into the future. It talks here about outcomes specified in the topic and the wider impacts in the destination. And I'm not showing a few slides that you will find in the PDF describing what this means. Topic outcomes, this is basically the expected outcomes in a call topic. And then when you look in the overall work program, you find the wider impacts from the so-called destination. So there's a lot of information given already in the calls that you should refer to here. Um, this is, for example, a destination 2 in a health call, which lists the expected impacts. This is meant by wider impacts. And for example, this is a topic description, which always starts with the expected outcomes. And so it gives, in the calls, already gives you a lot of information what should be achieved in the impact. This is not all, as I said, there's also paragraphs on scale and significance. So really try to use, for example, key performance indicators whenever possible in these chapters. And the last part of the impact is the potential barriers that might hinder you achieving your results, for example, certain regulations on national or European level. Not to be confused with risks. This is something else, the project risks. Here it's really about barriers, stopping you from reaching your impact. And this was basically the requirements of stage 1. So quite a lot that has to be written on 10 pages. So once you've submitted this, how does it continue? It's evaluated by experts nominated by the European Commission, not by the European Commission. They are moderating the process, but they're not evaluating it. So this is always the same for Horizon Europe, also for full stages. It starts with an individual evaluation. So at least 3 experts read the proposal, but it's often more than 3. Then they meet online or on-site in consensus meetings, reach a common position, give the points, and then the proposals are forwarded into the panel review and finalized into a so-called ranking list. When it comes to the first stage, it's finalized into a list that's invited to the full stage. It's important to know, of course, that first stage evaluation is using reduced criteria than compared to a full stage. In the excellence chapter, it's the same, basically. In the impact, it's of course only the evaluation criteria corresponding to the parts that you're writing. In each of these chapters, you can reach maximal 5 points. The threshold for the first stage is at least 4 of 5 in each criterion, so it's at least 8 of 10. But the Commission is using a so-called dynamic threshold. They really check how many proposals they want to allow to the second stage, because the point is to reach a success rate of 30 to 35% in the second stage. So really they're only allowing that many proposals into the second stage, which covers this foreseen budget and success rate. What I mean by this is that sometimes 8 might not be enough. There might be very competitive calls where you have to reach only proposals with 9 or 9.5 points are allowed to the second stage in order to keep the numbers under control. So, I mean, the point is anyways always, of course, to reach as much as possible. If you're interested what the evaluators are looking at, check out the evaluation forms, just as a point of information. And we are often asked, so once I've made it to stage 2, what's allowed then to change from the first stage? Do I have to does it have to be absolutely the same, or can I change certain things? So there's not really specific information on this. It's a bit of a gray area, Graubereich. Of course, the basic idea must stay the same. That's the idea that's been evaluated. But we've seen very often that maybe there's a small change in the consortium. You take up another partner, or one partner drops out. Maybe you make small changes in the budget. But if there are substantial differences, there is a specific part in part A where you have to answer these questions for two-stage calls. You see this on the left side, answering, are there substantial differences compared to the stage one proposal? For example, concerning the partners, the budget, or the approach. But in principle, you should know that the second stage is a completely new evaluation. For time reasons, capacity, it's absolutely not guaranteed that these are the same evaluators. It might be completely different ones, it might be an overlap of one person, but it's a new evaluation. I want to remind you that any questions now can be posed in the F&A window. I hope you're all finding this, and we'll get to the question answer session in a few minutes. We've seen that two-stage calls are in many clusters. I want to point out one thing for, yeah, there were quite a few people here for cluster health. That if you have any clinical studies in your proposals, you have to be aware that you have to give information on these clinical studies. There's a specific annex that's not relevant for stage one, but it says in this annex that of course, not all details of clinical studies can be fully elaborated in stage one, but that you should list key aspects already convincingly at stage one. And you cannot upload the separate document at stage one that you see here, but you should list certain points in your excellence chapter concerning clinical studies. So now some lessons learned, some statistics that you might be interested in. What are the success rates? And I'm giving here one examples from one of my calls, but I think all the others are quite similar, but it might vary. For example, we had in the last two-stage call, the first stage was in September 23. We had 9 topics, 9 call topics. In total, 1,000 applications were submitted. Then there's always a check for eligibility, the right partners, and so on. 954 remained. This was a call under blind evaluation, so there was a check on this, and after this check, if there was any disclosure of the identity, 21 were deemed inadmissible. So around 930 were left, and out of these, 138 were invited to the second stage. So overall, a 14% success rate in the first stage, so quite a high selection. But in the end, that's the point, because then the success rate in stage 2 was 28% in average. It ranged from 20 to 50% depending on the topic. So once you make it to stage 2, there really is quite a good chance to be funded. What are the lessons learned? You've seen the requirements, what you're supposed to describe in part B. What we've learned is that really these short proposals are quite toughly evaluated. All the points are looked at, so it's a bit similar almost to full applications. There's high standards, and really attention is paid to details and completeness. And a bit later on, I'll show you some sentences from evaluation reports where you will also see this. So really, you cannot see this just as a teaser or appetizer for your project idea. It really is a very condensed, we can say, mini-full proposal. And what we've seen is also that you lose important points in both chapters. Here are some comments by evaluators, for example, on the excellence chapter. The first ones are that the objectives are generic or not clear enough, that they're not verifiable or achievable. Performance indicators were missing. yeah, and the next one again, that they're not measurable. So really try to cover these SMART rule for your objectives. But there's also, of course, they look at the progress beyond the state of the art. The first comment here that there's not enough progress beyond the state of the art. It's not ambitious enough. But the second one, it's the other, it's the opposite. It's considered over ambitious. So that can also happen. So you have to find the right balance here on your ambition. They're also checking the TRL levels, how the maturity of the proposed work is fitting. There's one comment here that some approach is insufficiently described. But as I've said before, you have to cover all the aspects, all the bullet points, and you might also find comments, for example, here on gender dimension, that one proposal claimed that the gender dimension is not relevant, but there was no evidence provided to support this statement. And on the next slide, some comments from the impact section that the pathways are not are only insufficiently addressed, that there is a good credibility, but there's no quantifications for short-term and long-term impact or key performance indicators. The scale and significance is limited. It does not include estimation or metrics. So quite a few, as you can see, criticism on the quantification. That's really an important part. And you should really try to make this, yeah, use some indicators in the scale and significance chapter. And then there's some comments that some impact is mentioned but not elaborated, or some very specific points here on the bottom that, for example, patients or caregivers are not involved, that the target audience of your impact is not defined, or that the potential barriers and mitigation measures are only partially identified and poorly described. These were the comments from from the two chapters. Basically, I wanted to show you that all aspects are looked at and that you really, it's not enough to just describe your idea and hope that the excellence is recognized, but you really have to cover all the aspects that are asked for in the proposal template. So my take-home message is, yeah, don't underestimate the effort for the short proposal. Really start testing the submission portal on time. As I said, you can play around a bit with the templates. Start early testing the system, putting your administrative data in and collecting the relevant information from your partners. Pay attention to all the requirements and the page limit. Really, no additional pages are allowed. You cannot upload annexes. You cannot put the references on page 11 or 12. This will not be read, and you also shouldn't use hyperlinks. Use all the space and as many details as possible, and really use the margins allowed and so on. Lastly, for this part, the point to contact us as national contact points. On our website here, you'll find the ones for your cluster, the contact persons. Yeah, and with this, my part is finished. Yeah, we have now 10 minutes for the Q&A session. So I'll ask my colleague Ines if there are any questions in the Q&A.
Many thanks, Astrid, for this very clear presentation. And for the moment, we have two questions. So the first one, I suppose, is more for the second part because it's about anonymity. What's about references to the projects? What exactly means anonymity within part B? So partner information online, is there a form for partners download that needs to be signed, or will they have to accept being a partner online? So the first question, I would suggest that we are waiting for a couple more minutes because we're talking about this in the second part. The second question from Mrs. Matoshma is partner information online. Is there a form for partners downloaded that needs to be signed, or will they have to accept being a partner online?
Yeah, it's the second. So all the organizations register on the Funding and Tenders portal. They receive a participant identification code, the so-called PIC code. And this process has to be done before. And in this process, maybe something needs to be signed. But you as a coordinator then only invite the partners into the project, and there's no need for more signatures. I
Okay.
hope that was clear. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And then we have another question. How many proposals are invited to stage 2? A certain percentage of first stage proposals. I think you answered this in your
Yeah, I hope I answered it that, yeah, in the slides with the statistics, but just to repeat it, there's no certain percentage. Um, the amount of proposals is, for example, you have, let's say for one call topic, 40 million budget for funding for all the projects. So then maybe proposals overall with a 120 million will be invited to second stage so that they can guarantee a success rate of 30% in the second stage. Yeah, so that's the number that will be invited. They look at the budgets that the projects are requesting, they look at the thresholds, and then they set the threshold to the one that corresponds to this 3 times budget. Yeah, don't know if that was more confusing now, but to make it short, there's no percentage. Yeah, it's really follows the dynamic threshold and the budget, how much budget there is.
Mhm. I think it's clear. Thanks. And there is one more question concerning the budget. So can the costs also include material, laptops, and so on?
Yeah, that's a specific budgeting question. In principle, yes, you always have personnel costs, you have other costs like consumables, materials, machines, yeah, travel, and so on. That's normal costs. So yes.
Mhm.
Laptops has to be seen, for example, in some organization. Depends on if it's a specific high power laptop that you need for certain experiments, or if it's a normal laptop, um, then maybe not. Yeah, because your organization should provide you with this normally.
Mhm. Okay, fine. So for the moment, there are no further questions. So maybe there will be some more after the second part. So I will stop this now.
Yeah, I
And
mean, we have a bit of time. Does anyone want to ask a question orally? Then please raise your hand.
so let me check. For the moment, I could not see anybody. So I think it was very clear what you described and explained in your presentation. For the
Okay,
moment,
no
not.
questions. Okay, then we move on to part B. So I'll stop my presentation.
Mhm.
And so if you're not participating in the blind evaluation pilot, yeah, you're welcome to leave now. If you want to hear about it, please stay. And this is really important for all of you if you are part of the blind evaluation pilot, what this means. So Ines and Michaela, please go ahead.
Many thanks, Astrid, and welcome now to this second part on blind evaluation. First of all, we would like to know who of you is planning a proposal under blind evaluation, and I kindly ask Janine to start again the poll so that we can see how many of you are planning the proposal as either as coordinator or as partner. So for the moment, I cannot see it yet.
Sorry, Ines. Just a moment. I have some technical problems here.
Okay.
It does not work. I don't know why. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's working. So
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. So the question is, are you planning a proposal under blind evaluation? And if so, as coordinator or partner or not? Let's wait for a couple of seconds so that we can see. Okay, so quite some few of you are planning this as a coordinator and almost the same amount as partner. And yeah, some of you are just listening. Great. So we can go to the second question then. And the second question would be if you are already experienced in preparing a proposal under blind evaluation from previous calls, either as coordinator or as partner. We have mentioned this that already in 2023, blind evaluation pilots started, and so maybe you have already experience from these previous calls. So for the moment, I can't see the second question on the poll.
Yeah, there is. I don't know what's wrong with this. It's
Okay.
I try to launch it now. It's the same like before, the same problem. I think it needs a few seconds.
Fine.
Now it's yeah.
Yeah. Are you
It
already
works.
experienced from maybe you have already submitted in a previous call? So many of you are not experienced, which is great. So hopefully we can help you with the upcoming few minutes to help you in this. So some few of you obviously did already prepare an application in 2023, but most of you did not. So many thanks. I think we can stop this poll now. And I would like to give the floor now to my colleague Michaela Albu, and she will start now with the blind evaluation. Michaela, please.
Thank you, Ines. So from my side, also the first question we ask ourselves is why a blind evaluation is needed for those calls. And we got the answer from the European Commission, and they say that to foster a more objective and equitable assessment of project proposals, focusing solely on the merit of the proposed research and innovation. And second question, next slide, please, is what is actually blind evaluation? So it is an evaluation process where the identities of applicants and their institutions are concealed from the evaluators during the assessment of proposal. And the primary goal is to mitigate potential biases like the applicant's reputation, institutional affiliation, gender, nationality, or prior relationships with the evaluators. Next slide, please. Yeah, well, just as a fact, this pilot of blind evaluation was implemented already in FP7. And then it was used for Horizon Europe since the work program 23-24 and will be further implemented in 25, 26, and 27. Once again, it only concerns the first stage application, and not all of the first stage application will be blindly evaluated, but only some calls in cluster 1, 4, and 6. Next slide, please. Yeah, well, we should dive a little bit in the potential benefits, pros and cons, and we have here some potential benefits. Like the most significant of them is the reduction of bias, because some evaluators might favor proposals from well-known institutions or individuals with established reputation. By removing identifying information, the proposals of less prestigious institutions or early career researchers can be assessed only on their merits, the idea. Also, diversity can be increased. So proposals from underrepresented groups, such as women researchers from developing countries or those with unconventional backgrounds, may have a better chance of success when evaluated without the knowledge of the applicant's identity. Another benefit might be the focus on the core elements of the proposal, like the research question, methodology, innovation potential, and the expected impact. The evaluation is more rigorous, and the objective assessment of the proposal's quality and potential of success of the project could be better assessed. So then we also have the enhanced transparency of the evaluation process by demonstrating a commitment to fairness and impartiality. But we also have some cons, and here are concerns about the practical challenges like a possible loss of context, increased workload, re-identification risk, and gaming potential. Some argue that the blind evaluation is also particularly important for addressing the gender bias. But we also have to be fair, and we know that some proposal writers, they try to insert some identification, yeah, indications, such that the evaluators recognize the proposal and give them a better ranking. Next slide, please. So we all know there are some challenges when writing a proposal for a blind evaluation. We can start with the practical implementation because it requires a very careful attention to detail to ensure that all identifying information is effectively removed from the proposal without compromising its clarity or completeness. This involves, of course, deleting names, affiliations, or any other identifying details from the text, figures, and tables. Some of you have already submitted proposals that were not successful, and you would like to reuse the text for this application. Please give very thoughtful attention on all the names, affiliation, or any other identifying details, because this potential for re-identification is very, very high. Also, there is a risk that the evaluators may be able to re-identify the applicants based on the content of the proposal, such as the research topic or the methodology or the prior publications, if they are listed in the text. Yeah, this is a very high risk for specialist fields where the number of researchers is quite limited. So for such niche research areas. We also have an impact on the evaluation quality. Yeah, by removing the identifying information might hinder the evaluation process by preventing evaluators from assessing the applicant's track record and expertise. And as I have already said before, we can have some gaming of the system. Next slide, please. As Astrid already mentioned, so we have the blind evaluation only for the short proposals, the 10 pages in the first stage. Then the proposals that have been invited for the second stage will be able to submit the full proposal submission, and with the full proposal submission, the applicant identities will be revealed. And in the second stage, we have a completely new evaluation, as Astrid already mentioned. Yeah. So, how actually it is working in the part A, all information of the consortia as usual, but the IT system will automatically hide the consortium. And in the part B and in the abstract, don't forget the abstract, the name, acronym, and logo of the participating institutions, as well names of personnel, must not be mentioned. Also, attention to former projects and literature. It should not lead to the re-identification of the participants, because if the facilities, institutions, or persons are identifiable in the part B, the application is not admissible. Yeah, so we have here some important facts that have been summarized by the European Commission. The difference between clearly inadmissible proposals and gray zone cases will be evaluated case by case, of course, with the help of the legal team. Next one, please. Thank you. The admissible proposals where the evaluators could guess the identity of the applicants regardless are possible. Those cases will be tracked, and the extent to which blind assessment where possible will be investigated. Also, the mention of the country of the applicants, it's possible. Does not necessarily mean that the proposal will be deemed inadmissible. However, if the applicant is clearly identifiable, the proposal will be inadmissible. And here we again speak about very specific areas of research where in a country only one or two stakeholders are active. Also, the intentionality behind the exposure of the identity is considered by the European Commission. And you have some suggestions and some how to not write examples in the application form, which has been annotated with more guidance for the applicants regarding the blind evaluation. Next slide, please. And here you have the extras of the template. You see here there is an indication how to insert references to publication and also examples of statements that result in inadmissible proposals. Next slide, please. Yes, regarding the evaluation, these admissibility check are performed by European Commission internal staff, and the experts, however, can notify the program officers in case of direct or indirect identification of applicants, but the experts should evaluate blindly. They are not allowed to do any further extra steps in order to identify the partners, only based on the information included in the proposal. It is like this. So you probably know, if you reference a paper, you look at the authors and see which kind of papers they have written before. And it's the same also here. So if you have references in your proposal, the evaluators will check those references. They will see, is there any indication that the person which was listed in the reference list can be one of the partners in the proposal or not. Of course, some of them, they guess. If they are specialized in this field, they will guess, yes, but they are not allowed to say it, yeah. So, as Astrid already mentioned, also for blind evaluation, only the excellence in the impact chapter will be evaluated with 4 points from 5 as a threshold. But be aware that for innovation actions, the impact criterion is given a weight of 1.5 to determine the ranking of the proposals. And this can be very, very important and for the invitation in the second stage. Next slide, please. Yes, the evaluation form include the main evaluation criteria with the comments and scores, but there are also some additional questions like the evaluators are asked if they were able to guess the identity of the applicants behind the proposal, even if the proposal was fully admissible, can be declared inadmissible also after the first check of the European Commission. The scope of the application, exclusive focus on civil application, and also the artificial intelligence. That they will be asked if they used or developed AI-based systems and or techniques. So be very transparent if you use artificial intelligence for images or the writing a text, just give a very short indication that you use it. Next slide, please. Yes, and I think my presentation is already done. So Ines, I see your part now.
Many thanks, Michaela, and I'm taking over now. So I would like to show you a couple of examples what to consider. Michaela and I had been involved already in the pilot in 2023. And I think one of the most challenging things that we observed is this change of mindset. So it is the project idea, the concept that are in the center of the description and not the team behind. And this could be a bit challenging for those of you who are already experienced in preparing applications under Horizon Europe, because normally you're trained to put yourself in the spotlight, your expertise that is outstanding. And in this particular case, it's different. So it is what is planned and not who will do it. So the focus is completely on the research activities, but not on the research capacity. And the operational capacity will not be evaluated at stage 1. So this is then just if you're invited for the second stage to prepare the full application. I've selected 2 examples where we received a lot of questions in 2023, and one of them is about the consortium. So the disclosure of the consortium, any indication that might identify the partners is not allowed. You are allowed to announce the countries from which the beneficiaries come and which disciplines are covered in the consortium. But you are not allowed to mention that a project partner has developed a certain method and insert the reference to prove this. Or you are not allowed to refer to a unique discipline in a country, mention that this is covered by the consortium. Or to mention that a project partner is providing a unique infrastructure. So for example, you can say we are 15 project partners from 7 European countries. We have disciplines like, then you explain, or we have partners from universities, SMEs, public bodies, and so on, but nothing more. The second example that I would like to refer to is how you introduce references and projects. This was already asked during the first part of our webinar. And so own publications and projects can be listed if there is no emphasis that the publications or projects were authored or conducted by one or more of the proposers. And so it is really important to use a mix of references and authors and not to stick on the only ones from your consortium. So do not mention that the previous findings are basis for these projects and insert the respective reference. This is not allowed. In case of patents, of course, you can mention them. For example, you can say we did a patent search, but you cannot mention or write that a beneficiary of your team is the patent holder, because then he or she could be identified. Also, no footnotes of links to YouTube videos, etc., that can potentially identify project partners. And just to give you an example, from the commission, from the feedback to one of the applicants that finally was not admissible, it was written that the applicants did not explicitly mention the organization names, acronyms, logos, personnel, and so on, but they have provided unique identifiers for one of the applicants because they have included references emphasizing that these are from the team and all the authors of these publications are from one unique entity. And therefore, this partner can be unequivocally identified. I have seen such proposals when I did proposal checks, and I could immediately, after 5 seconds, tell you who is behind this. Because if you have even a short list of references, let's say you have 10 references and 7 of them are from the very same team, it's not so difficult to guess who is behind this. I have collected some feedback from these inadmissible projects from cluster 1, 4, and 6 out of these first blind evaluation calls, and I have listed this here. So, of course, names of the partners that appear in the proposal, acronyms of the partners, of the coordinators, also personnel in a figure. So please be very careful if you insert any figures, graphs, or so on. The short name that is on a picture, for example, or acronyms that are included in figures, or even tables with the partner acronyms per work package and main task. So sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes you simply forget to remove this when you're preparing the application. And sometimes it's, some more examples here. The current research expands our previous finding described in a recently published article, and then the reference is inserted. Or we will make use of a highly comprehensive single chip solution for which XYZ has engineering samples available, clearly indicating that this is a partner in the team. Or the prototype testing and validation experiments at small scale will be conducted by partner XYZ. Or the sodium chloride powders are supplied to the partner XYZ for coating experiments. So sometimes it's really obvious, sometimes you simply forget to rephrase it so that your identity cannot be found out by the evaluators. I have also summarized some tips for you because if you're using Apple, please check if there are hidden infos in your PDF that you're uploading in the system. So this can appear. Please be very careful for this. Some applicants simply blacked out the names and the information. It is not forbidden, but it's also not preferred. So we really would ask you to avoid this. As already said, it's acceptable to show some basic info about the consortium. Like I said, how many partners, organization types, from how many countries you come. And you can also mention that they have experience in EU-funded projects, but of course, you're not allowed to mention any acronyms or any details on this. So, and to ask you now if you're already fit for preparing a proposal under blind evaluation, we have prepared some questions for you. And I simply ask you to say if this is admissible or not. And I ask Janine again to start with the very first question. And the very first question is, the new system has been recently developed by two organizations in our consortium. It will be used in Work Package 2 and serves as ideal scenario for designing our next generation robot. So is it admissible or not? What do you think? Okay, I think we can stop it now. So, sorry, most of you said it is admissible, and this is correct. It is correct because with this sentence, as long as you do not insert any reference that would clearly identify you, you can go for this. Okay, so we go to the next question. This cumulative experience serves as the foundation for the research proposed within this project. Innovative solutions for the acoustic comfort in open space offices, national grant by XYZ contract number 123A007. Is it admissible or not? What do you think? Okay. I think we can stop it already. Very, very clear indication. Yes, this is not admissible because you can immediately identify simply by a contract number by the name, because if it says the national grant by XYZ, I put in here, so I removed the original name, then you can identify somebody. Okay, next question. We will use the model developed by XYZ and others published in Nature as basis for our research. Okay, let's wait for some more seconds. Okay, we can stop it now. Yes, this is admissible because it doesn't say that you have published it. Yeah, so therefore you can say it. This is still admissible. Next question. The consortium has recently studied also heterogeneous catalysts for the more difficult alkylation of anilines, published in XYZ 2021. Okay. I think we can stop here. Yes, this is not admissible. So you can clearly identify, because if you say you have recently studied this and insert then the reference, then and refer to the consortium, this is not okay. And the final question that I have prepared for you, we modify the chosen strains genetically with a method that has been proven in the lab, TRL 324. University of XYZ is world leader in this kind of genetic modification, far ahead of all rivals from China and the US. There's still some answers coming in, so let's wait for a few more seconds. Okay, I think we can stop it now. This is not admissible. So this is not allowed. Okay, many thanks, Janine, for posting the survey. And I'm coming here to my take-home messages. So first of all, the European Commission has organized a webinar, and we have here the link. You will also find it then in the chat. There is also a video that you can find under the very same link, and I would highly recommend that you invest this couple of minutes to see what the Commission is emphasizing here. There was also an info session for the national contact points from Cluster Health, and there is a link here also to this document. I would also recommend to have a look at the briefing documents for evaluators, because there are also examples in what is allowed and what is not allowed. And then if you prepare the application, I simply ask you to use any external expert to cross-read your proposal, because if you are in this preparation process, sooner or later you do not see if you are breaking any rules. And finally, of course, to use us for your proposal check, because we have a very accurate look on this in case that we are not sure. We are discussing, Astrid, Michaela, and I, if it's eligible or not. And with this, I'm ending my presentation, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the questions that you might have. So, Michaela, maybe there are already any questions coming in.
Yes,
Or
yes.
can I just briefly dive in? There were also 2 questions in the chat. Yeah, I
Okay.
can't copy them into the Q&A window, so don't forget about them, Michaela.
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
also read them later, but go ahead now with the FNA.
Okay, so the first question is the one we had before, anonymity. What's about references to project? What exactly means anonymity with part B? Partner information online. Is there a form for partners? I think we answered the second part of the question. So the first part, anonymity and the references. Ines?
I think that I hope that I have answered it within my presentation. So as long as you do not say that you are the author, that the results that are published belong to you, then you are allowed to mention this. And there is a very good example also in the proposal template, in the proposal template under the guiding. So there is a very good example how to put this in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Second question. Is there any future plan to evaluate the evaluator? Most of time they do not read or understand the proposal. Well, there is no plan to evaluate the evaluator. They are assessed by the European Commission. They have their own rules how to choose them. So they will not be evaluated. I'm sorry, but this
I
is
think
the reality.
what we
Yeah.
can add here maybe is that if there are the consensus meetings, I think that Astrid also mentioned this in her presentation, that this can be moderated by the Commission. And so there is already sort of control, so to say, that, for this whole process. Maybe Astrid, you would like to come in here as well.
Yeah, I think you've said it all. There are independent observers. This happens, unfortunately, that it's not the super expert for your proposal that's evaluating. Unfortunately, that's part of the process. And that's, why we always say write the proposal in a way that also non-super experts understand what you're talking about. It's a mixture of people, just, how it works.
Keep in mind that at least one evaluator is not an expert in your field. So you have to write a proposal such that any person can understand your proposal, your idea, and your goals. So the other question. We would like to name certain former projects. Some evaluators may know them. We are unsure whether we should mention them and could then be identified. Yet these projects are crucial for this project as the activities will partially base on them. How to overcome this challenge?
What you could do is that you could write that you did a literature search and that there are some other projects in the past that are very important for this. And you do not say that you had been involved in them, that you belong to the consortia of those projects, but you can mention them. But please take care not to mention that you had been part of those projects. So if there is any information out of those projects that is not published, that is available for everybody, then it could become difficult because then it would imply that you had been involved to have this information. Maybe Michaela, you would like to add here.
Yes, first of all, you are only allowed to mention international projects because as soon as you mention national projects, you indicate the country and yeah, you indicate yourself indirectly. And for European projects, for example, you can just write. So after a search in the core data bank with following keywords, we found the following projects which are very important for us, and we can use the results for this and this and this. So it should be very neutral. Yeah. So the next question, how could we deal with institute-specific unique technologies and methods? Well, this is very tough. This is a problem because, yeah, as I said before, if there are in Europe not many institutions or persons developing such kind of technologies, it's very easy to identify them. However, if you write a proposal in a neutral way, as we have already said before, you can still participate, of course, even if the evaluators can identify you indirectly after that. I mean, it is as it is. So I don't think so. And this will be this case by case, yeah. With the European Commission. They will not state your proposal as inadmissible from the beginning. They will have to discuss it internally and decide. Yeah. Astrid, Ines, would you
No,
like
I
to?
think this is, I think for this particular cases, it's important that maybe others can have a look at the proposal
Mhm.
and maybe give some hints simply for the phrasing, so that
Yeah,
to avoid
exactly.
that there is any indication indirectly that could be difficult.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can always use us to
Mm.
read your proposals. Send us the proposals and we can help you write it in the correct way. So the next question, if there is a patented technology to be
Mhm.
used in the project, this is not replaceable, but will clearly point to the identity of the partner. How do we keep anonymity? I mean, yeah, Ines?
Uh, I think, as I said, you can say that you did a patent search and that you found a patent. You're not allowed to say that you are the patent holder. If the information of this patent is, so, yeah, if it's still confident, then it could become difficult. If not, then you can refer to it. Michaela?
Yes, yeah, I totally agree with you, Ines. Um, I have to say that in the first stage, it's not really necessary to indicate the patent. Maybe in the second stage, but of course, for the credibility, if you want to really increase the credibility, then yes. But as Ines said, with a patent search, yeah. But then you have to have many patents and not only one, because if you list only one, then yeah. Yeah. Um, Next question. For references, might it be a good idea to only use the DOI and year of publication and not even include the first author? Yes, this is a good idea. Um, it is a good idea. However, you still have to be aware that you don't have to list only your projects or your group publications, but try to diversify. So I always tell so 2 or 3 publication from one group is okay, but not 5. Yeah.
But can I
So
ask you, Michaela, if you use the DOI and the year of publication, you can also
you
find
keep
author.
you can find the author. Yes, of course you can
So
find the
does it make
author.
a difference if the author is listed or if the DOI
No,
is listed?
it doesn't make any difference, but it might help you with shortening the text.
Or shortening the text, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but
Yeah.
not for the identity.
No.
Not for the identity.
Yes,
Yes.
I think that
It,
should
it
be clear
doesn't
on
help.
this.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
The identity can still be found. If the project requires very specific skills preliminary data and we have them, how do we say so and stay anonymous? Yes, you also here you have to write it very neutral. You can say that the consortia has specific skills, but not that you have the preliminary data and indicate who has the preliminary data. Also very neutral. So in the consortia, we have the specific skills and we have the necessary preliminary data, or we have access to the necessary preliminary data. And this would be a neutral way to write it. Yes, next question. The next question is about the third question of admissible, not admissible. If the model is not open source, it would be an indicator of a consortium partner. Would it then still be admissible?
Ines, do you want to go back to that slide?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Just click backwards.
So it was this one. Okay. So we will use the model developed by XYZ and others as basis for our research. So the model has been developed by somebody, it has been published, and is the basis. It does not say that we have published it. And this is the difference. So I took it out from a guidance document from the Commission. This is why I used it. So in the question, maybe Michaela, you can repeat the question.
Question about third question of admissible, not admissible. If the model is not open source, it would
Okay.
be an indicator of a consortium partner. Yes.
Yeah.
If the model is not open source,
Yeah.
it is an indicator of the
Yeah,
consortium
that's
partner.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not admissible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is allowed to mention without mentioning any names that partners have collaborated in a previous related project. Yes, but not giving the previous related project name or acronym.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So there were 2 questions in the chat. Let me find them.
Oh, okay.
How do the evaluators deal with infos about the institutions involved in the consortium if the first stage is blind? How do the evaluators deal with infos about the institutions? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Maybe
Do you, Ines?
yeah, maybe the person would like to come in. I would assume that how to evaluate if you do not know who is behind the activity. Yeah, if you do not know who the institution is, but maybe I'm wrong. So maybe the
So,
person
Ms.
would like
Bruno,
to.
do you want to come in? And do you want to ask the question? Talking? No? Okay. Then the next question was, this is not specific now to blind evaluation. It's a general question on AI. Or, Michaela, do you see the question?
Yes, I see
1059.
it.
How will the answer to "did you use AI?" Oh, you
Influenced
mean
it.
for writing, probably. Sorry, influence the decision. It seems natural to at least review the English with it, but if this leads to downgrade, then perhaps it's better not to use it at all. No, it doesn't lead to downgrading. No, don't get me wrong.
No.
There's a guidance on AI for proposal writing. You are allowed to use it. They just expect you to be transparent about it. So you could include it in your references, or it's not specifically said where you should be transparent about it. Just, yeah, they say in the guidance that you should say so if you did it. Yeah.
If you only use it to refine your English, you just write a sentence. We use AI to refine our English. It's not, you don't have to give the name of the AI you used.
Yeah. But I have to be honest and realistic that most people
Yes.
probably don't mention it.
Yeah, probably. Yes. Yeah.
But it should not, it should never, the evaluators are briefed that this should not lead to reduction of evaluation points.
The evaluators will not evaluate this if you use it or not, but the European Commission, they want to have statistics. And this is to see how many of the projects use AI or not. Because at a later stage, in the next work program, maybe they will include hearings for evaluation. Because maybe more than 90% of applicants, they use artificial intelligence for proposal writing. And yeah, the commission has to do also something with the evaluation.
Yeah, I think this is future
Yeah.
music, so to speak.
Yes, it's a
Maybe
future
in the
music. Yes.
next framework program, but
Yes.
not in this one, I think, that we're talking about today. Yeah, but
Yes.
that's a future discussion, I think, which we all need to have. So I think we've answered all the questions. If there's any burning question, please raise your hand. Yeah, I think the examples are very clear from you, Ines and Michaela, and as we've discussed, the template also gives very good guidance and examples of sentences to be used or not to be used. With this, we finish today's webinar on time. Yeah, I've put the PDF again about the slides. We will also send it to you afterwards. The recording will be available on our website. It will take a few days. And again, if you are coordinating a proposal, especially then, please get in touch with us to arrange proposal checks and check of your idea if you want to. The deadlines are approaching fast, so there's not that much time left over the summer break. Yeah, thank you for listening today. And once you close the session, a feedback window will pop up. Please give us a brief feedback. What you liked, what you didn't like about today's session. We always appreciate this. It will only cost you a minute. Thanks a lot and hope to see you soon. Thank you.